Good afternoon, evening, everyone, or morning, Scott. We'll now call the meeting to order. The time is 5:27. And we'll proceed with item 2, which is approval of the agenda, that the agenda for the Prescott Heritage Committee meeting of May 13th, 2024 be approved as presented. Do I have a mover? For that, Lee, thank you. And a seconder, Louis, thank you. All in favor? Motion is carried. Are there any declarations of interest tonight?
I'll just repeat this. I'll provide them 5.2 and 5.11 in relation to 360 Dibble Street West.
Thank you. Okay, and 5.2, you said.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Item 4.1 is a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. And that would be that's from the minutes of April 23rd. A recommendation that reads that the Prescott Heritage Committee minutes dated April 23rd, 2024 be accepted as presented. Do I have a mover for that? Louis and Jamie, second. Thank you. Is there any discussion on those minutes? All in favor? We'll look it up, moving right along. All right, now we get to the meat of the agenda, folks. So we have 11 properties that we're looking at. As far as we this evening, maybe we'll get them finished. That would be lovely, but we'll just do what we can. And the idea is we're reviewing these properties with the new process in place. And at the end of that, would like to have a conversation about how that process felt for you. So I've asked people informally before the meeting started, but let's have an on-record discussion of it afterwards. So what we've done is Lindsay has put the blank form up on 3 screens so it will come for each of the properties. And as we discuss it, she will enter into the boxes whatever information we are wanting to provide. We'll ask you to hang on to your forms. You don't need to hand them in at this point, but we'll ask you to hang on to them until after bylaws have been written and you've had a chance to review and that sort of thing. And then we'll maybe collect in the forms at that point. But if you hold on to them, then you've got all of your original material with you, if you wouldn't mind. So just to give you an example of what this might look like, if we take 388 Center Street, so just working down the list, if we take 388 Center Street, and if I were to start us off, I would say that I see a connection with the direct associations with a theme, event, belief, person, activity, organization, or institution that is significant to the community. And the heritage value that I would attach to that would be B, features of a property related to its function or design. And I would say that the piece that would need to be protected in that is the vault. That if the vault is intact in that building, then that would be something worth protecting because of its history as a banking institution. And prior to that, there's also significance with the doctors, although there isn't a direct heritage attribute to attach to the doctors in terms of a feature of the building. And then I would also identify has importance in defining, maintaining, or supporting the character of the area. And I would say that there would be a need to preserve the exterior Georgian style because of it being one of the 4 properties where there's one property on each corner forming that sort of little historic hub. Those would be my 2 points that I would make. So I would open that to discussion. Do you disagree with any of that, or is there anything that you would add to it? Louis.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, we have had the owner here before.
Yes.
And although you are correct, part of that house itself is in the kit.
Yes.
On the Dibble Street, and the lady does not know whether she's going to tear it down, leave it as is.
Okay.
She's had troubles in the past selling the house because of the amount of work needed. And one of the troubles that she's worried about, that she told us, was that she's afraid that if it becomes heritage, it will be much harder to sell, and then parts of the house are beyond repair, right? So although I do agree with the interior, like, it's very, very nice, some of the exterior may not be safe altogether, right?
Yes.
So I think in particular, this house, it would be nice before we make decisions to bring the owner back and be like, what can you do? And what are things that you may have to let go And I know it was brought up with the Heritage Association that we really believe that it has a connection with a few families here in town and it should be, but because it's someone that's already living here and they've really said, no, they don't want it to be, maybe we should bring them back and, you guys have a discussion about it.
Yes, I'm glad you raised that, Louis. I went back through all of the material because I was aware of this particular property and it happened prior to me coming on the committee. So, but I had heard that the owner was reluctant to have it designated. And then Ray mentioned it at the last meeting that he was concerned if people weren't wanting something to be designated, should it even happen. I'm wondering if we need to do this in a part thing where we have to, because we are an advisory committee to the council, we have to make an objective decision about whether or not this is a property that we feel on behalf of the town would need to have a designation. And it's really council's decision with the property owner, because the property owner can object. We have a role to educate so that the property owner can understand that we're not going to cause problems for them. And we can limit the bylaw to the piece of the house that is still existent.
Like a Walton one.
Yeah, exactly. Or we could say, as far as the exterior goes, don't worry about the part that is falling down. But can we preserve the rest? We could do something like that. But what do the rest of you think about that? I don't know how much we as a committee can take the responsibility for making the decision of whether a property should be designated or not, on the basis of an owner's feelings, if we are supposed to be acting on behalf of the town. And if we are only advising.
Well, I agree that we should be advising and looking at properties, as far as putting a blanket statute on them that they're designated, so you've got to jump through hoops and so on. That's, to me, is wrong. A person buys something, invests money. Most of these properties that we just looked at, for the majority of them, are already fixed up by the owners.
Yep.
Without being designated. And you can see that with, probably 25, 30 other properties in town, at least.
Yes.
That people take pride in them and they want to restore them to close to original and so on. There used to be some incentives to being certified, or whatever you want to call it, designated. And I expect that there still is some type of incentives, government support for certain things. But it certainly doesn't come close to what it costs to restore to original or close to original and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person's willing to talk to council before they do something, and, I think our biggest thing is that we don't want buildings or areas torn down or desecrated in some manner.
Yes.
So yes, the advisory to council and let them take the heat if there is any.
Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, the homeowner certainly needs to have say in it and so on. And, what does it mean to me to be designated? It's,
Yeah.
is it a good thing, a bad thing? It's,
Yeah, the problem is if we say, because a homeowner is not interested in having a property designated, if we back away and say that we're not going to suggest to council that the property be designated, then what we are, as far as I can tell, saying is, if you as the homeowner wish to tear that down and put up an apartment building, that's goes. And are we prepared to say that?
Well, I think that's a little far-fetched with the zoning in the community. That's not really what's going to happen. I think this particular homeowner, especially since she's tried to sell it, probably doesn't want the albatross around her neck of it being designated historical, and that can make or break a sale.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people because of restrictions put on historical properties, don't want to take that on.
Mhm.
So I think we'd be doing a detriment to this homeowner if they are adamant that they don't want to be registered historical. I'm not saying not do it. Maybe don't do it right now. You know, it's if they're looking at changing hands, is this something that we can put on and bring up next year or something? Because, I don't think we should, yes, we work for the town, but we also work on behalf of the people who live here. You know?
Absolutely.
And so, if somebody is quite adamant about having something registered historical, I mean, I did a renovation. My house was registered historical. And honestly, I would rather have had it not registered historical because of the hoops I had to jump through and what it cost me with this town for permits and things like that. It's not fun, And if she wants to do renovations and things like that, I think we're just adding to her misery.
But there's got to be a middle of the road here on that. That I would say is, can we throw put a type of designation on it that doesn't, like, yes, part of the building is falling down and so on, and that would be extremely costly to bring that back to original and so on. And that doesn't make sense. If anything,
I think you're right, Scott. I think even if we brought her, especially her in, the lady, and said, even if we could keep the vault and whatnot, and you may want to tear that wall down on Dibble, whatever your future plans are, right? At least that we're trying to preserve something in that house, right? But this house specifically, yeah, like it needs work, right?
Mhm.
And she
So,
knows it, and
yeah.
and that she made it known that. And the reason I bring this one up is because there was another house that's in this list that's just as nice, the house just as heritage. And the owners were like, yeah, we're not interested. And then we kind of just moved on and said, okay, right? But yet we kind of, there was more emotion to her, right? So, well, at what point do you say it's equal to one person and the other, right?
That's a good point.
So,
Well, and I mean, structurally, how is the inside? Like, I know the back is kind of what do they call it? I forget, the words on the
the
two.
exterior walls in the back on Dibble?
Yeah, what do you call it? Like an open air garden kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I forget the word. I'll
Like a
think of it.
terrace?
Hmm?
The terrace?
Yeah, it's kind of like a terrace, but the grotto. The
Yeah.
grotto where it's like an open air, but structurally, like, where's the vault? Is it in the basement or?
no, it's on the main floor,
Main floor, yeah.
Okay, so
right in the center of the house.
seriously, there's a vault in the center of the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that grotto is not supposed to be a grotto. That's grotto's there because there's no roof, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what made it a grotto.
yeah, so I mean, that's what I mean. I call it the grotto because I'm trying to,
Mhm.
but, so structurally, if we tell her she's got to maintain the vault, but the walls are falling down, like.
But if there is, a sale, first of all, it's been listed multiple times over the last several years. So I
Yeah.
don't know how long a time we would be waiting. And second, if there is a sale, while I appreciate that it might not be an apartment building, it could still be a significant change to the exterior of the property. I mean, it's zoned residential. So there are lots of forms of residential
Oh, yeah,
that would be done.
Yeah, it could open up into apartments.
Yeah. So, do we have concerns around that? If the owner happens to sell, in, say, this year, if we decide to hold off and not look at this until December, and there's a sale prior to that, is that an issue?
Can we not designate part of the structure, like the west, well, even the vault is, who wants a vault in their living room to start with? It was put there because the bank rented the building. They were only there for 8 years or something. Historically significant? Yes, they were the first bank in Prescott. Who the hell's ever gonna see the vault besides their few friends that come in
Mhm.
at Christmas, nobody else is ever gonna see it, so.
Mhm.
You can, I mean, take a picture of it and say, this is what used to be here, but, I love it, but I wouldn't want a vault in my living room. But we could protect the building by designating the west wall, the south wall. The north wall's got damage to the far end of it.
Mhm.
If I owned the building, I would be taking that off and probably making a parking spot or a patio or something. It was more beneficial when they owned the carriage house that to me shouldn't have ever been severed off of it, but
Oh,
it was.
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah, the blue carriage in the back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, that was part of the property and stuff. But if you designate, two walls or something, I mean, it's the old stonework and stuff, but that protects them from, or that means that they can't tear it down or put in two more doors or something without going through the,
Talking to council.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lee?
Thank you, Kieran. One thing I think we need to remember here is we are the Heritage Committee. The idea of the Heritage Committee is that we look at those aspects of heritage in the properties in town that we think are worth preserving. And the wishes of the owners of those properties are secondary. If the owners of every property in town that we considered heritage were, like Scott here, that what he's done, the building that he owns, or Louis, you don't have a heritage home, it's the same as the rest of the ones on the street, but you're keeping it up, and Jim, you as well. So it's the protection of the property is not so much the wishes of the owner. This is the only one of all these that I put possible. It was either yes or no under the rest. And like Scott, I've lived here a long time. I'm very familiar with that house. I've done work in it. But the thing to remember about that house, it's almost identical, really, with the one across the street and the two on the east block on the corner. The thing that makes that one different is the back part, which we're talking about, but that's an add-on. That's not part of the original building. We can decide that the original building, the massive stone thing that sits on that corner, is the actual part that we want to designate. Like Scott says, it can be the north wall, it can be that portion of the building. The vault, I think the vault is one of those things that certainly distinguishes the building. And like you said, you really can't see it from the outside, but it's there. And there are other properties that we'll get to here. Joe McFarland's house that used to be the Beaumont house for one. The Historical Society recommended not designating that one because it's been kept in such great shape by the past owners, and they figure it will continue to be. This one's different though. It has not been kept in great shape for the past owners. They've done this to it, they've done that to it, it's got a new roof on it. But the fact of the matter is the back part is in horrible condition. The porch that's on the front of it, that's not original either. I don't believe the part that goes over the door on the Center Street is either. And so if we had a lady, that came to us and said, I want to tear off the porch, I want to tear off the back part. The Lamar Lux, for example, on the corner of Edward, they did exactly that. It had two large additions on the back. You remember, Scott? It had a garage that we used
The greenhouse.
by the funeral home for many years, and then there was a two-story addition on the back of that. Lamar Lux tore the whole back end off and put a very nice addition, in my opinion anyway, that complements the building. And I don't see any reason why if somebody bought this and wanted to do exactly the same thing, preserving the front part, why I should object to it. It adds to the ambiance of the neighborhood. I don't think it would, well, I certainly don't think it would detract from the building. It would add to it. So I think in a case like this, we should have a say simply because we don't want the thing to fall into any greater disrepair than it already is. But I also don't think that we should just blanketly designate the whole property because it's not worth it. Nobody in the right mind buy that property and attempt to, at least in my opinion, fix that back part up. Something I never realized, but I think a real good look at it. Maybe you never noticed this either, but the second story of the part that is the back part, if you look from the south, it's not stone, it's wood. I never noticed that till last
Back
week.
end, yeah.
It's wood. Why would it be wood? The whole place is stone. It's strange.
Money,
Eh?
well, budget, right?
Well, I don't know. That's peculiar. They go that whole way. The grotto area is all stone. And they make this second story. It
Some of the
almost
houses-
sounds like there's the story there that maybe it fell out or something. Anyway, I'm running on. I don't mean to, but I'm just saying that this is an unusual property because of its condition. But I don't think we should be looking at designating the whole thing if we do decide to designate it. That would take away, I would think, the possibilities from that building that would make it a better building for our town. And I don't think unnecessary.
Any other comments on this?
I just don't think by designating something historical, it's a guarantee that someone is going to care for the property or restore it. It's not, you know,
It doesn't guarantee that they're gonna look after it or bring
Exactly.
it to standards, no,
Yeah.
but it does protect
what's already
property from being,
taken down.
it gives the town a tool to be able to force, if you will, clean up,
Persuade's a better word.
persuade, good word.
But it doesn't, like you can't say because you're designated historical, you have to have a finer curb appeal than the property beside you. Right? Like the town can't come and say that because my
No, they
property is
can't.
historical, but the guy beside me isn't, he can let his property go to waste, but have some sort of fiduciary duty to the historical committee or a historical Prescott to maintain the upkeep of my property as a property owner, just because I'm designated historical?
Oh, you're right, they don't, it's, and you.
There's nothing in the bylaw. Can we get a copy of
But we
the?
do have property standards. So what you're saying, if what you're saying is your property is designated, well, I guess it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And you have beside you a row house that is well.
I have a house down the street that's got tarp and dog poop in the front yard, and nobody says anything about that.
You say, tarp.
Like a blue tarp and a huge pile of dog feces in the front yard. So why would I be held to a higher standard than that? Under what bylaw?
Well, property standards would go towards your neighbor with the tarp and the dog poop. But those types of things, in all honesty, are generally complaint oriented.
No, fair enough, and I get that, yeah.
There 10 times a day and never complain to the town about it, probably nothing is going to happen.
Exactly.
It's most of our bylaws are complaint driven. If nobody ever complained about Louis running his table saw at 12 o'clock at night, which we could do. We
Well, I would-
have a noise bylaw.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have a speeding bylaw or traffic.
No, fair enough, fair enough. But your comment was that, you know, if they're designated historical, then people take better care of their properties, but that's not always true. My property was designated historical in what, 1988? And when I moved in, it looked like a dog's breakfast. Nobody had taken care of that property.
I did not say that.
Oh, okay, so.
That, if you took that.
Yeah, no, I misunderstood that. Yeah.
What I was inferring was that if it was designated, then hopefully we could keep it from deteriorating any farther than it was at the point where it was, when it was designated.
But you can't.
Well,
We don't, I'm asking, like, can we? Do we have that power, or not power, but do we have that in the bylaws? That if it's designated historic,
where a building inspector would come into play with, you know, if somebody applies to, you know, I want to knock out that window and put another door in
Right.
there to open.
but what if I don't want to do anything? What if I own this property here and I don't want to do anything? I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do any upkeep. I'm not going to do any restoration. I'm not going to do anything for the next 35 years and I'm just going to let it deteriorate.
Then basically we'll just talk about you behind your back.
Do we have a fund to support renovation of
No,
historical properties?
no.
Yeah, we do. Matthew?
So the CIP program, if you're a designated or listed property, then you can apply to the community improvement program. And there is a certain amount of funding that you can go for. So I just want to kind of back up a little bit. So the whole point of designating a property is to say that it's of historical significance and value, that if it was torn down, we would be losing something.
Mhm.
So you designate the property and you designate specific items to it. And so if they're doing, let's say they're changing the paint color on the inside, we don't care unless it was in the bylaw that said that was such a spectacular gold leaf paint that it should be respected and kept forever. Other than that, we don't care. So it's not that anyone's held to a higher standard or property standards perspective. It would be if the property is deteriorating to a point where it could possibly be undermined to the point of being demolished. And so 440 Devil, that's a prime example.
Excellent example.
So,
I don't know that. What is that?
so it's the one right beside the funeral home, just a couple of down.
Oh, yeah.
It's been abandoned for years. So it was, I believe, designated, and a property owner from Ottawa purchased it and was going to do all sorts of renovations, ran out of money in the middle of the renovations and kind of walked away from it. So another owner has purchased it, had all sorts of great plans. COVID hit, they've run out of money. And so again, it's kind of stalled, but we're at the point now where we have requested an engineering report to say, it's a designated property. We need to know, is it stable? If it's not stable, what needs to happen? And what are your plans going forward? And that's where the Ontario Heritage Act allows us a little bit of movement. There's nothing from a town bylaw perspective. We're functioning under the Ontario Heritage Act.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that case, once we get the engineering plan and we understand what that looks like, and if the answer from the engineers is, it's beyond saving, then we come back here and have that discussion. And, that, because really ultimately that's what you're doing is you're saving the building from being demolished. Because then if they want to demolish it, they come to Heritage Committee, you make a recommendation, it goes to council, and there's an Ontario Heritage process that goes through, and then ultimately it could go to the tribunal to make a decision.
This I understand.
Yeah.
I'm asking about upkeep.
Yeah. and so-
It was insinuated.
Yeah, and so no, there's nothing that says no,
Yeah.
because you have a designated property, you have to maintain it at a certain level. Now, if a portion of it, if we said, okay, this is a prime example, there's nice cornices that's on Center Street.
Yeah.
So if we start to see them deteriorating, falling apart, falling off the house, and that was listed as a specific item in the bylaw, then we would say, we're losing that heritage aspect to it. We need to go and have a discussion. And so that's, but, you know, if the roof is caving in, or let's say it needs to be replaced and it's not leaking, and it's not undermining the building, there's nothing that we can do and step in and say. But if it was listed in the bylaw to say, and I'm hearing what you're saying about the back part, that's, you know, it'd probably beyond saving, and that can be absolutely listed in the bylaw if you decide to designate it to say the current condition of the back part, and we highlight exactly what that is an understanding of the committee that it is probably beyond saving. We would appreciate the individual coming to across the Heritage Committee if they decide to tear it down. But at this point, the Heritage Committee in their determination did not see that was losing that would be a significant thing, if that's what you want to do. And so I think there's a couple of things. One, you're not held to a higher standard. You're not held to have to maintain or enhance or anything like that. It's what are we going to lose if changes are made? So let's say they want to do a renovation and they want to clear out 4 walls and one of those walls contains the safe. If that's what you want to save, then we would say no, we wouldn't allow that. If they want to argue that, they come to Heritage Committee and it goes from there. So, but really ultimately at the end of the day, what buildings do you want to save and what aspects of the building do you want to save? Everything else is superfluous after that.
Yep.
So if they have really nice stairways, stair railings and that sort of thing, but you didn't see that it was a requirement or part of something that needed to be saved, they can do whatever they want to the stair railings.
No, of all this, I understand. I understand this.
Yeah.
That was not my question.
Okay.
Or that was not the point I was even making.
Okay.
But I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm good.
I don't know, but do you want to put an asterisk on this, Madam Chair, and then see if we come back to it, or?
Are we at the point where we need to do that? Can we make a
I
decision?
mean, I think you have a good point, like what you were saying, because you put all the effort to upkeep and not keep it all. And then I think you had a good point where, you know, what we can designate something and then just protect that, right? And going back to Scott, you know, maybe you just do the front exterior wall and everything else. I mean, anything's better than nothing. It's just some points to bring up from the past when the owner was here. But if like Lee was saying, if everybody said, no, we don't want our house, and this committee really wouldn't exist, right? So.
I think Lily's got a very good point in bringing, because this is the person in all of these that had the most to say, that was upset, I guess you would say, and really had the wrong impression of what you could do and what you couldn't do. And given what some of us have talked about in this particular thing, I think it would be advantageous to that lady if we invited her back and let her know, although maybe we should make it a decision before then on what we feel.
Yeah, I feel if we invite her back and just have this open conversation all over again, we're not really serving her because we haven't decided anything. So I agree with having her come back. I think that would be useful to have the conversation. But I also agree that we should have a decision.
Yeah.
Before that.
Retrospect, I think that's, yeah, I think we should have her back, but I think we should have a decision on what, well, let's put it this way. If there's a majority decision to designate it, there's no point having her back. So there is that.
So when we communicate to these people, so for instance, we decide that, yes, we'd like to designate the facade of the building minus the porch to retain the Georgian character of the home and the vault on the main floor as historical.
Mm-hmm.
When we send the letter to the people, do we outline that specifically, or is the letter just sort of a blanket letter? Like, how did she come to the misunderstanding?
Lindsay, do you want to speak to that?
Through you, Madam Chair. my understanding was that she had a misunderstanding before even knowing about what a designation was. So I do feel she came with a lot of questions and confusion, and as staff, we tried to answer. I think the committee tried to answer. I feel like Fraser from the Granville County Historical Society tried to clarify as well. I'm not quite sure. I felt like at the end she kind of understood. I don't think she was 100% on board either with the potential designating her property, but I think she came with a misunderstanding prior to the meeting.
And would a letter specify if we decide to designate, does a letter that goes to the owner, does it specify what it is we are designating?
So through you, Madam Chair, as staff, we haven't yet had that kind of discussion. So the letter basically, the first letter that they had received just invited them to come to the meeting saying that the discussion was happening. So until the committee, and anything the committee wants, if that's what the committee wants to be communicated, for sure staff can put that in a letter to be communicated to the homeowner.
If I may, a letter that you're talking about or that we're talking about here now, is that a letter that the Heritage Committee would be sending to this lady, or is this a letter that the town of Prescott, having reached a decision after having information from a recommendation from the committee, would be sending? I think that's kind of, to me.
All we're doing is reporting to council. It's
Yes.
recommending to council.
Yes. Our recommendations are to county, aren't they? They're not direct to the homeowner.
But I think if a letter came from us stating that the Heritage Committee is
Recommending
in
to
favor of recommending to council that your property be designated, and these are the, whatever we want to protect, or these are the reasons why, that would give that person an opportunity, I think, to appear before a council with forewarning, or to come back here again and speak to us. I mean, it's all kind of.
And also add into that
Done it
letter,
before.
if you added into that letter, the CIP program info and anything else that is pertinent to it.
Yeah.
Then it,
Excellent.
I'm sure that her confusion that initially was talking to neighbors and people that don't know. Everybody's got a comment about it. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want, but they don't know.
Well,
And
I think exactly right. So our job is to not only recommend, but to educate.
Yes.
So we just sent her a blanket letter saying, we want to, register your house historical, but we didn't be more specific about certain pieces of it.
oh, no, I think
No.
it should definitely be specific and
I can see why she would be, kind of like taken aback, going, this is a big project and it would cost a lot of money. And maybe her idea was, if I'm registered historical, I have a duty to have my house be in a certain level of maintenance that she could not afford at that time to do. So I think that's the thing. I think we have to be very specific and open with people about what this actually means. And that's why I was bringing up the point about, do I, as a owner, have a higher fiduciary duty in this town to maintain my property? And maybe that's part of it too, that she doesn't have the funds to bring it to a standard that she thinks that we have an expectation of.
Sure. And you're right that we have a big responsibility to educate, but keeping it separate from, one of the things we have to recognize though with the letter is that the initial letter did not say we want it, we're thinking of designating. It said, would you like to come to a meeting? We want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It was that.
But then she goes and talks to her neighbor and then,
Sure.
like you said.
Sure.
And then there's this sort of black cloud about it.
Sure.
Comes in carrying the black cloud.
Yeah. And that's probably going to continue to happen for us until we get through our list and get to the part of our role that is involved in educating the public about what designation means. Okay, can we make a decision about what specific aspects we wish to designate for this property? And then we move on to the other properties and is that acceptable to the committee?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, what do we agree on? Do we agree on that, so like the west facade to keep with the Georgian style, the vault.
I would,
I would
agree
propose
with
that
that.
we say the shell of the main building or, and mention the vault if you'd like. It's, I'm sure the vault is in their mind all the time too, but, you know, and if they decide they want to get rid of it, they can come to council and probably get rid of it. It's, but, you know, we have, that is probably the most important point of,
The shell.
Yeah. Agreed?
So through
Lindsay?
Madam Chair, when the committee is looking, are we still thinking it's under the has direct association with the theme? The entire shell, is that the main quality or
I think that would,
criteria that it falls under?
I think that direct association with the theme is the vault.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if it's the defining, maintaining, or supporting the character of the area for the main shell because of its position.
I agreed with exactly what you said, and the,
Yeah, so we'd have two
yeah.
areas. Okay, folks, that was great. A lot of hard work. 461 Center Street. I think it's all going to get easier from here. We started with probably one of the more difficult. Okay, does anyone want to take us through, last one, somebody want to start us off with this, what you have marked off and what your final thought was? And do recognize please that it's listed as the Presbyterian Church in Mance on the, at the address level, but we actually talk about the Mance in a separate place.
I'm popping something here that I keep forgetting about, but every time I walk by there, I think about it. And we have each year, we have a citizen of the year, we have a business of the year, we have that type of thing. But I would like to see the Heritage Committee have a property of the year, renovation of the year, something like that. And what made me think about it is the amount of money and work that the people that own the St. Andrew's Church Manse did on that place over the last summer. They had it completely excavated, the cement wall, if you notice, the porch was rebuilt at the front. That cost a lot of money, and I think we should recognize maybe somebody every year,
Okay.
or it wouldn't even have to be every year,
Yeah.
but if we just throw that in for consideration.
Yeah, let's put it in the minutes as something that we'll keep track of as we go along. Great. Thank you. Okay, somebody want to talk to us? This one?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, the group did come for the Presbyterian Church. They were very welcoming about having it as a heritage designation. We spoke about like the recent things that they did. They were covering up the bell on the top with new mesh. But they seemed very forthcoming about having it registered. So other than that, I would agree that it'd be a good applicant for it. Especially with the current upkeep that they continually do, right? And they seem to have the congregation to support it.
Okay.
I know they have an American contingent that comes from the States to sing. And so that's a nice thing to have, especially during COVID, you know, people lost people in the congregation. And so to continuously have that, it's nice to see, right? Because your church is only as good as the people coming in.
Okay. Louis, just correct me if I'm wrong. Was this the one you were going to recuse yourself from?
No, I recused myself from 360 Dibble Street West, man.
360.
I just read the minutes from the agenda.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, sorry. Thanks.
Oh.
Okay, so specific onto the form, is there a heritage attribute that you would identify that you'd attach to one of the cultural values?
For me, I put the exterior stonework.
Mm-hmm.
forgot the actual architectural name, but it's the rounded spiel for the roof. It goes with the era and also goes with the same type of architecture of churches they were doing in England for Presbyterian churches. And also it follows a theme that you'll see across in different cities like Kitchener, Toronto, and even US for that type of church.
Okay,
So the architect, whoever the architect was, it must have followed it right to the T. Like I grew up in downtown Toronto and the church right across the street from me was like exactly like that.
Yeah.
Double bell, four square. The side was rounded. So they followed their theme to a T, right? I mean, yeah, they had a few changes, but it was the same architect, right?
I think, is that the one that they refer to as the Richardsonian Romanesque style?
Mhm.
I think so.
I think so. So,
There's another name for the type of roof. for the
Okay.
roof.
okay,
But you'll see different Presbyterian churches across the Eastern Seaboard and they're almost the same.
Okay.
Double bell on the four corners, right?
so that would be a characteristic A, the style, massing, scalar composition.
I would say so. Yeah.
And it would be has a rare, unique, or is representative of that first box.
True, yeah.
Is that right? Okay, thank you. Anyone else have anything you see?
The stained glass,
Mm-hmm,
I have it as high degree of craftsmanship or
Mhm.
artistic merit.
yeah,
It is functional yet attractive and shows materials and craftsmanship.
yeah. So, that's category E, and that would go in the second box, Lindsay, into displays a high degree of craftsmanship. Anything else anyone wants to add?
I had all these boxes except for one checked. It's the only Italian style church that we have in town. The stonework is interesting. They displays a high degree of craftsmanship or artistic merit.
Mhm.
We don't have too many towers in town that hold it. That's like a bell tower, almost like they have in Europe, but this is attached. And then it has the Harry Horwood stained glass windows. He's a very famous stained glass window
Mhm.
creator. The interior of the church, if memory serves me correctly, both the organ and the huge ceiling light in there were donated by J.D. Winder.
Would those, I wondered about those, Lee, would those be things then that we would put down to be protected?
Yeah. Now, you can have an organ reworked, but it's the same organ. The ceiling light was originally gas, it's now electric. Even that is something worth noting. How many of those are still functioning?
And where would you put those, Lee? Are they, sorry, did you say those were technical or scientific achievements?
I did,
Okay, thanks.
yeah. I forget exactly how many pipes are in that organ. It's something. Physically, functionally, visually, or historically linked to the surroundings, but I don't think we can deny that. It'd be hard to visualize that corner without that church sitting on it. And it certainly has a high importance in defining, maintaining, or supporting the character of the area. Both of those two churches do.
Right. But for any of these, we have to be able to say what the heritage attribute is that we would be protecting. So we don't actually need to worry about about how many of them it hits. We just need to make sure we have heritage attributes for whatever we do want to emphasize. So we've got it covered, I think, haven't we? We've got that it's the only example in town of that particular style, which is an A category, so the style of it. We've got the Horwood's window, we've got the bell tower, which are both materials and craftsmanship. And we've got the organ and the ceiling light, which are both technical or scientific, which I guess would be, well, they're still materials and craftsmanship. Does that cover us?
I think so. And this is another, actually, this is one that we can point to as an example. Just because it's a significant historical building doesn't mean you can't do something to it.
Mhm.
That roof that's on there is not the original roof that was put on, what, 30 years ago, maybe 40, I think it was a slate roof on there originally, if I remember correctly, but it is a metal roof now that does not detract from the building. And I think it's a good example of what you can do that that would be permissible and acceptable. I mean, nobody wants to, God, I can't imagine what it costs to put a slate roof on.
The Anglican Church stayed with the slate.
Yeah, they did in the nineties.
You know,
They repair it, theirs, yeah. Anyway, in any case.
Okay. Okay, can we vote on this one?
Yes.
Are we good? Is this a yes?
Yes.
I'd say so.
Thank you. 491 James Street West, the Alexander Smythe House. I didn't have anything on this one. I had it as a no.
I don't have one, that was importance in defining, maintaining and supporting the character of the area. And, that hit number F. Landscaping has been a landmark of that house for 30 years. It's significant.
Beautiful home.
And I worked there as a kid, for heaven's sakes, as a gardener. It's always been maintained that way. To me, the house itself, while it's a nice old house, is not significant. It's the surrounds, the way it's been surrounded, the way it's been landscaped, but that to me is not enough to designate it.
It would be a hard one to insist on maintaining, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
and the fact that it's been completely reversed. Original state.
I was gonna ask about the porch, because you've been there your whole life.
Well, the house
Is that
used to
original?
face,
The
No.
back porch facing the
no,
river.
it's in the ballpark, but if you take a look in the back wall and you can see where the piece of wood is inset.
It's set in the brick.
And that usually indicates where the ridge line of the roof went, and it doesn't go to the end, but there was a fire in that house many years ago. And what it actually destroyed, I know if you go in the house, the interior moldings are not what you would expect to find in a house that was built in the 1830s. There's something that's been put in, I would say, in the 1940s. They're still nice, but they're not the decorative. So whether the porch was rotten and torn off and this one replaced it, I don't know. When I was a kid, it had a railing all the way around it, but there was a large porch there. You can tell by the wood, but it's not the original. But the house did face south. The house to the south of it apparently was built on a piece that was sold off the front of it.
Also was another house in the yard.
No, the house that is facing Dibble Street.
Yep.
To the south of it, that's newer. That apparently was built on the front lawn because the house did face Dibble Street.
Okay.
I don't know that personally, but I got that from historical reference.
Do we have agreement on no to designation for this one?
I'm against it.
Against designating?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. 590 George Street, Labatt House. Any comments on this one?
Well, the only one that hit to me was direct association with the event and so on. And it's the Labatt's Brewery. I mean, it's a nice old stone house, but it's not anything special. And the Labatt's Brewery association with that house was very fleeting. So I didn't have anything else. It's not something I would designate.
Same?
Yeah.
In agreeing?
I'm in agreement with that.
Good. Look at us just.
A question on this, so like, have all of these homeowners been notified that we are doing this on their property and so on?
Yes.
So do they get like this letter that we're sending to 388 or whatever? Do the other ones get a letter saying we have decided not to designate your property, or at this time we,
Yeah, let's,
some sort of a letter saying that we have deemed it not
Right.
practical to do it now. However, we appreciate all you've done to your property and hope that that carries on, blah, 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 blah. Like,
right.
something.
Want to speak to this, Lindsay?
Quickly, Madam Chair, most of the property owners that had attended, I have contact information, phone numbers, and they had asked, rather than come to every meeting to hear about it, to just be notified once the committee made a decision. So what I'll do if the committee wishes, once the decision's been made, council has done their approval, I can call each homeowner and let them know and update them if they're coming off the list, and they'll be aware.
Something to, very nicely say that you came in second, but that's not what I mean. It's-
Yes.
Consolation prize.
Well, we do hope that they maintain pride in their home and, we are, a lot of this is because their home is in such good shape that we don't need to
Absolutely.
police it, I guess, is
Absolutely.
one of the words. It's,
And actually, I think it's wonderful if Lindsay is making those phone calls. She's very good at this. And it's that direct personal contact.
yeah,
It's really nice.
The thing about our house too, which also goes to what you can do or what, that's not just one person with that house and they can create, that's more than one. Over time, everybody has done something else. That house was plastered at one point.
Mhm.
And the plaster was knocked off over a number of years. And then the people that are in there now, they painted the woodwork. But I was walking the dog by there one day and I stopped to talk to them. I asked me if we had reached any kind of a decision. I said, no, we're just kind of discussing it now. But one of the horror stories that can happen, the young man said that he was talking to his uncle, and his uncle said, well, if the way heating is going, you'll probably wind up having to styrofoam that building down the road and side it or something to heat it. I said, God forbid, but it's not designated. There's a number of houses around in town that are stone but strapped. They're vinyl sided.
Well, he can always come and talk to me. I have my home spray foam insulated and my heating bill is very low. It's a stone home, so there you go. No strapping required outside. All right, 408 East Street.
Okay.
Comments? Louis?
Well, this one had a pretty interesting story just with the previous owner, even the butler's room in the carriage house. Was interesting with the car and whatnot, but Scott, you lived on the road from them. I mean, when I first met you, that was one of the first houses you told me about that Burton was in. If you want to learn something about Prescott, stay at night over there and you see all the different moldings from different times, right?
mm-hmm.
I never took you up on that. But I have taken a tour and it's quite a marvel of a piece of a home. The amount of work they did to keep it up to date and trying to not renovate and keep some of the terrace moldings in the ceiling and just renovate the ceilings with just new drywall. I mean, that was immense itself, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, are they under new ownership now or are they still trying to sell it or?
Still trying to sell it.
Still trying
on
to
the
sell,
list.
as far as I know.
Still on Realtor.
I wasn't sure if they were interested or not. I'm not sure if I remember them here. I think they were here for a meeting. the last meeting. Do you remember that, Lee, at all, or no?
They were invited, I stand to be corrected here, but I don't think they made the first meeting when we discussed it, but they did, I believe they did make.
They come the second meeting, okay.
But I don't think they had very much to say, as I recall.
I have a question about this property. If the interior finishes, I mean, you're mentioning them, Louis, and they've certainly been mentioned in the Historical Society write-up. If that's what we wish to, part of what we wish to specify, how do we specify them? We don't know what they are. How do we do that?
Well, you got a very good point, and I have the interior woodwork marked down here, but you're right. I mean, I've been in the house, not the whole house, I was in a section of the house, and yeah, the woodwork in there is stunning.
Yeah.
But if we were going to designate this house and designate the woodwork as a significant factor, we really should be looking for an invitation to do a tour of the house. Because I don't see how we could otherwise.
I haven't been in the house in 12 years, 15 years maybe. Prior to that, I was in every nook and cranny and little hole everywhere through it for years. We did a lot of work in it, the company I worked for and so on. The downstairs, the dining room, living room, 2 living rooms and so on are fantastic. They're beautiful. Stairwell is beautiful. Second floor is a mismatch. It's bedrooms and bathroom on the west end are the old black and white tile floors and stuff, but it was, I mean, plumbing went in the 1910, 1920 era. So that's when that era of that is. And there's been other washrooms, bathrooms added and so on. Kitchen is 1970s. There's a real mixture. The top floor was at one time servants' quarters and stuff. So it's, still some lather. There was still some lath and plaster there, some drywall. Most of it's been rewired and replumbed, but not all of it. Fire alarm system's gone in and stuff and, then cosmetics, but it's really just the living room, 2 living rooms and the dining room that are, other than that, it's been kept up and it's nice. The porches are all, turn of the century or, I think O'Donnell Higgins did some of that and, so it's not like it's all 1840 or whatever or 1860. It's,
So, and certainly the 2 living rooms and the dining room are on Realtor with photographs.
yeah,
So
they would be.
we
I'm
could,
just gonna say.
yeah, it's there.
It's for sale. Is there a virtual tour of the thing?
I don't remember seeing that. I just remember seeing the batch of photos and the architectural, the floor plan. But I wasn't looking more closely, so there might be a full tour. I don't know.
Well, that would be interesting if there was a virtual tour, then that's something.
And the carriage house, I mean, it was a carriage house up until, mid-80s. And then it was totally renovated into 3 units.
So am I safe in saying that it feels like the committee would like to designate, but we need to be able to specify what it is we would designate? Do you agree that it should be designated?
Yeah, like you said, there's different rooms in there, right? Like the grand saloon, the staircase and the moldings, but other than that, a lot of stuff has changed in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the history of the house, it indicates that it was added on to, renovated many times. I mean, it's got some blue vinyl siding on the porches there now. It obviously wasn't there before.
Yeah.
And it does say that the porches are closed, I believe. Maybe not all of them, but some of them were closed. And that's But that's another example, of what you can do to an old house that doesn't necessarily detract from it excessively, right? I think it's to me anyway, it's the mass of the house and
And the property, it's.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
The location on that corner is certainly significant now. I don't know if I would include the carriage house in that, because like.
it's part of the property though. From the exterior, it still looks like the old carriage house and so on. It's,
So are you saying then the property?
I'm more for saying the property. And as far as the interior woodwork and stuff, who are we to say that somebody can't change their woodwork or, paint it brown or do whatever? It's a very personal thing. I think anybody would be a fool to, do away with it and change it to aluminum and glass and stuff that you get nowadays, but I don't know that we should be the ones to tell them that they can't change their oak trim and stuff but I think that the property itself needs to be preserved or, I would hate to see anything happen to it.
First check of that property, that was a pool on the east side, which isn't very historical.
No, there would have been a croquet court there or something.
Very possibly.
So it would be the house and the carriage house that you would then be.
Or the house and grounds.
Yeah, how do we protect grounds? Are we saying that people can't change the grounds?
No, but we're saying that they can't sever off a lot off it or something. It's,
Is a lot a possibility if we protect the house, the shell of the house? Is it possible for a lot to be
well, they could,
built on that?
I'll bet you that if they applied to sever off the carriage house, that it would go through. There's a 3-unit apartment that somebody would snatch up.
True.
But
it's all done. If they did sever it off, somebody's gonna live in it. It's not like they're gonna tear it down and build a $500,000 house. I'd be
No.
more inclined to think that they would sell the back part where the pool is and build a house.
Yeah, if it's wide enough.
Built
Quite possibly.
east of that.
Yeah,
And then honestly, that wouldn't bother me. Because I don't think that part is significant to the effect that that house has on the corner. I'm not sure. How you,
Okay, we are saying, are we saying that it has value because it is a landmark? Is that where we're going with this particular property?
I would say that's accurate.
That's certainly the way the Historical Society interpreted it.
Yeah.
As a landmark. So, all right, it has value because it's a landmark. What makes it have value as a landmark? It is the shell of the house, the shell of the carriage house. That would
they're not,
value as a landmark?
Kind of hard to say because of that addition on the side, right? Or was it addition facing James Street? Or no, was it always original?
facing James Street.
Yeah, like on the second floor.
What was that?
All the, off the kitchen
Yeah, that's right.
area, there's yeah, no, that's an addition that was punched out the pantry in the second floor.
Just added, yeah.
Well, I think it's significant. The mass of the house and the design of the house is significant simply because I don't think there's anything else close to that in that area. I mean, it is of the size and mass and type, like the Wiser houses in the west end of Prescott, there isn't anything else like that in the east end of Prescott, east of Beach Street. I mean, yeah, there's some old houses down there. You have one of them, but they don't have that mass. They don't have
No.
that size. And the fact too, the gentleman that owned that is fairly notable for his associations outside of the country. He indicated he owned part of the racetrack in Miami or something like that. And this was probably more of a summer home, I would think.
So what about if we went with has value because it is a landmark and our reason is the mass and design of the house and the carriage house?
That protects the property and the show.
That would protect the property of the shop.
That's right.
Does that,
Yeah, I'm in
does that
favor
work
of
for
that.
you, Scott?
Sounds good, man.
That work for everyone? Great. Thank you. 177 Fraser, Dibble Street, Fraser House.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Please.
So was that, just for clarification, is
Yeah.
that property moving through?
Yes.
Okay.
That'd be yes. Yeah. I had no on this one. There was, I couldn't find a specific heritage attribute and to make the case. For the rest of you. I would no. Okay. You did know as well, Jamie?
Yeah, I did know.
But no, it's great house and we'll see them look after it, but
Okay, so that's a no.
Hey,
Sorry, Luke.
no, so to me, the exterior of this one, what would be the difference between this one and the one on Center Street? The only reason is they're built within the same time period. Right, like I know we're big on trying to protect the one on 388 Center Street. But I would say that at least the exterior on the one on the 177 Dibble Street would have an importance. Just because it was a style of manner of homes built in the Northeast.
But
But there's no history to it, like a
Yeah.
little bit of history, the children, the mother died early, but to me, I just look at the exterior of the shell, right?
mhm.
Like, I know we were critical of 388, right, for the exterior shell, but I see the same thing with 177 for the exterior. There are many houses like 177, so it's easy to, let one slip, but it is, to me, at least that exterior portion. I think the porch is renovated, but it's still within the same rim.
Yeah. I think one of the problems with us looking specifically at the exterior is that we have so many houses in Prescott that have beautiful stone exterior.
Yeah.
And I think we need to have something with it to really make.
No, I understand. It was just like, I'm just making a comparison.
Yeah.
to Why do we give this one a 388? Well, there's a vault and then there's the history, right?
Mhm,
There's also the exterior,
mhm.
which it is really nice if it can get kept up, even shutters, like to even get for them. Like that pair of shutters would cost you close to $1,000 if you're gonna get a professional carpenter to do it. I look at 177 as the exterior is the same way. There is no historical, like, we can record the families in the last 200 years. But that's it, right? I'm just trying to bring that up.
Yeah, no, thank you. Are you in agreement that it should still be a no, or are you one?
Yeah, like. It should be a no. I just brought it up as an example, right? There.
Yeah.
How many exteriors we can protect.
Okay, thank you.
Fair enough.
147 Dibble, which is Mance, St. John's Mance. I have a no on this one.
I have no.
No? I have a no. Okay. Anyone
No, here.
theory from that? That's a no. St. John the Evangelist at 490 Center.
Prescott hits a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
matter of fact, I had something in every one of these boxes. Definite, to me.
In 490 Center or 172 Middle Street West?
That was the wrong address. It should be 90 Center.
Oh.
It is, the address is 172 Dipple.
My fault.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
shame on me, I go there. Just wanted to bring it up to you, Madam Chair, because I go to that church, but I did ask the, I know that church.
Mhm.
They did speak to the diocese, I said, hey, the church came up and they were very much in favor of it. Because they were worried that, every year you do renovations and like, they're not gonna take any stained glass or whatnot, but they checked with the diocese and then the new reverend there even said, he was for it, that the diocese kind of gave him a thumbs up if you can get it, and
Terrific.
they still want to keep with any renovations, they're not gonna change anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So in the displays of high degree of craftsmanship or artistic merit, we've got stained glass windows again, right? Which is B. In has a rare, unique, or is represented above, we've got the Gothic architecture, which would be an A. And in the demonstrates or reflects the work or ideas of a significant person, we've got the architect designed the parliamentary library. And it was a significant stonemason who did the work. Is there anything else?
Well, one of the unusual things about it, it has value because it is a landmark. All navigation charts for the St. Lawrence. The top of that tower is listed as a navigation point where they played on that and turned. Prescott is at an angle on the river.
Yeah.
And I also had on the top right the combination of cut stone and rubble stone in that building is significant.
Thank you. So that would be a C, I guess, features related to its historical associations. Is that right? Or is that A?
I put an A.
A? Okay, thank you.
style Composition of building forms. but
Okay.
I also had E, materials and craftsmanship.
So that's rubble and limestone.
The other thing too, I had in yields or potential yield information that contributes to understanding the community. It's significant that we would have a church that size. It indicates that there were a lot of English immigrants to the in the day. Otherwise, they wouldn't have built a church, and that's not the first one on the site.
Yeah.
And that's an Anglican church. And Louis, maybe you can verify this, but that is, it's always been known as St. John's Anglican to me.
Yeah, it always has
There's a
been.
difference between Anglican and Church of England,
Yes, there is.
but that's.
Yeah, it's always been St. John's Anglican.
Okay.
There was the original church that was in the back that burnt.
Mhm.
And then, obviously they built this one, but it still celebrated the 200 years, a couple of years ago.
So in terms of the qualities that we would be protecting, the attributes, sorry, that we would be protecting, it would be the Gothic architecture, the stained glass windows, and the rubble and limestone exterior. Is that correct?
Slate roof is certainly significant, but I don't see how we could.
Well, one, we don't have enough people to do plate roof area.
No,
Supposed to last another 100 years, so.
no.
I don't think so, Scott. I keep picking them up every Sunday. I'm serious. So the guy doesn't run them over with a lawnmower. Just a problem with one nail, right? They're one nail slate. So with a frost thaw around February, that's usually when we find the slate is in March.
Are we good with this? Is this a yes?
I'm good, yes.
Yes. Okay. 305 Center Street, the surgery. Louis, thank you again on this one for having had the conversation with John Harding and sending along the information, additional information for us.
Yeah, that was just luck. Like I said, we were just cleaning up Blue Church Cemetery and he happened to be there.
That's great.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good.
Okay, comments on 305? I think we were all pretty comfortable at the last meeting that this was going to be a property that we would be designating. So let's just specify what it is we are wanting to protect on this property.
One thing I noticed on it, when I was looking at it, the front door, there's no keystones,
No, it was
and
redone.
there's no keystones on the south window,
That's right.
but there is on everything else on the second floor and so on.
I believe it also had a transom before.
On the front door,
That's what I thought, unless they dropped the.
well, even the transom would have the keystones, like I'm just amazed at that it's almost as if the door was put in after the fact, like. Not that it matters a lot, but, you know, originally, maybe the door was on the front where that window is now, and,
I should have asked Mr. Harding then if there was an angle iron.
well, I'm sure that that change was made, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It's,
Oh, he specified about the 40-60 windows being,
yeah,
Mhm.
you know,
no, I read his thing, it's fantastic.
it's really good. So Madam Chair, would you say that the exterior or the shell and like some particular windows?
Yeah, I wondered about under the has a rare, unique, or is representative of, if we put the windows there. And we look at the windows in the 60-40 split and at that French window / suicide door.
There is like a stone wall that separates the first from the second that he maintained, John. I don't know if John unearthed it, but so like right where that window is that faces Henry before the kitchen,
Mhm.
that wall is stone, so it would have been the original back
Yes.
stone wall.
I've never seen it.
So that's the
Yeah.
interior, that's an interior
Yeah.
wall that,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
had the
don't-
original.
I'm
back.
like 99% sure that there's a stone wall there.
Yeah, John Harding did mention that.
Yeah.
Right up.
Yeah, and it's before you go up the stairs. I don't know how that worked, but anyways, so I don't know if we're preserving the shell, do we include that kind of half wall that lives inside the house?
I've never seen it. I've never been, sorry.
Fraser and I had a discussion about this, and it's been a very interesting take in this building, which is different from anything I've heard before. Fraser's theory is that the back part of the house is not the addition, it's the original part of the house.
Oh,
And the reason he said that, because the original kitchen is in that part of the house, the stairway to the upstairs is in that part of the house. And there is no stairway upstairs in the front part.
no,
But it is reasonable to presume that there was an outside stairway up to that suicide door. And so, I mean, he had other reasons for saying those things. I'm not gonna bore you with them, but yeah, he seems to think that the back part was original and that the gentleman that had, was it a tailor shop in
Yeah.
there?
Yes.
Yeah. he seemed to think that these larger windows on the front, in particular upstairs, might have been for the benefit of his tailor business when the sewing was upstairs and he had his office and
Like a
store
mannequin.
downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's possible, but who the hell knows, really?
And access to the root cellar is in the kitchen,
Oh, neat.
is in the front, is in the part he's talking about as well. To go down to the basement, which is only about, well, my height, 5 feet high, is from the kitchen on that side.
Back part.
Yeah.
He did it very well behind. Because they did indicate that there were smaller buildings on, in that day. I mean, most of the buildings on Water Street where your building was, they're all gone now, were smaller buildings and they were replaced with the larger ones on King Street in the, towards the end of the 19th century. Anyway, it's got no bearing in anything. I just thought it was an interesting
Yeah.
perspective.
Well, Madam Chair, they said like my house is designated and I'm not allowed to take down any unoriginal walls,
Mhm.
which would mean the exterior or any unoriginal walls inside the home. And I think that's because there was the addition on the back, which only has the doorway open.
Right.
So we could say something like that you can't take down any unoriginal wall. Because that back one, we designate the entire property and the shell would be original and the wall in the middle would be original, right? I don't know, is that possible?
Can't remove any unoriginal.
It's, you can't remove any original.
Right.
Yeah, original wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
original. I got it
Gotcha.
wrong. Yeah, so that was the term set out under my thing was I wasn't.
That would lock your hands up, wouldn't it?
Well, if the interior wall is, well, obviously it's an exterior wall, depending on whether the front was built first, it's integral to the,
Support of it.
yeah, and so it's not like it's gonna come out. I mean, what I could see happening down the road is somebody come along and say, geez, I don't really want a stone wall, I'll gyprock it. Do we really want to be saying that, no, you can't gyprock that wall, or, I mean, it's nice to have an interior stone wall, honestly. I don't know as I would want one, but
I don't agree with tying a person's hands that tight. Like, it's just, I love preservation. I love historical and so on, but I do believe that a person's got to have the rights to do what they want with their property to a limit. And most people that have a nice old place are there because they love the nice old and they want to preserve it and keep it as close to original as possible and so on. But, you know, you talked about insulation earlier and so on, like it's, you know, like when I bought my house and started renovating, I put spray foam in there, but it was urea formaldehyde. That was the big thing. You know, and then over the next 10 years, I removed it all and had all sorts of tests done on the house and so on and so forth. And I got $3,500 from the government to buy an air changer and
Well,
I would say, at least the exterior.
Yeah.
Or at least,
although
I'll give you an example.
they do with all
Yeah.
insulation, you really may smell that.
it's all had to go to a
Someplace.
listed company, yeah. They came in with masks and
okay.
breathers and all this stuff.
I know it's a bigger deal. Well, Scott's point of view, we have tiny hats. I was working at just someone's house a couple of years ago in the Glebe, just to help a friend. We had to go get a retired carpenter to show us three-point crown molding with Paris molding. And that's, you know, that's an all day work to just set it up and carve it. And then the second day, start marking it. And then the third day to wet it. It's a dying trade, right? So if you were to say, no, preserve all the crown molding, and a lot of crown molding, for example, is all cracking, the easiest thing to do is take it out, right? But for somebody to come in and do Paris molding, I think the average age of a carpenter is 75 plus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only a few people that, there's in New York Standard Family, Hubbard and Company that does restoration of homes. And there's only maybe 5 companies I can name from Gananoque all the way to the Quebec border that do those kind of work. That's it.
Yeah.
So going to Scott's point, yeah, it's a good point not to tie anybody's hands. Maybe keep the exterior shell, the windows, which are nice, the other back part of the window, and maybe, I think you were describing about the back wall, that interior wall, or maybe, or is a suggestion.
The windows have all been replaced though, they're not original, they were.
But the proportion goes,
Yeah, the proportion, sorry.
Windows,
You're right.
yes.
but
Yes.
they're not historically significant.
No, but they do contribute to the style of them in a 60-40 split is representative of that time. And so if we did the windows there, which Lindsay, that's a B in the first box, that the windows and the French window. And then we could do the style of the building and the exterior building in direct associations with the theme.
Yeah.
Because it relates to the doctor and to the tailor's business, the way that it was set up. Does that work for everyone?
Mhm.
Okay, we have a yes for that? Okay, let me check in with you guys. We're just coming up on 7 o'clock. We have 2 properties left to discuss. How long are you good for? And I need to ask staff that, actually, we have 2 properties left. I need to ask staff as well. Are you guys okay for timing? Yeah, okay. How about the committee? You want to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, 392 Edward Street. What have you got on your forms, folks?
Well, Fraser, I think that this was significant because it was the last building before we get into the historic downtown. It was one of 4 that were on that corner. There's only 3 left. Personally though, it's the original part of the building is substantial. But I don't find that it is enough for me to designate. I had.
Louis?
I'm sure, I just have it would be the west side. Even though it's been renovated, but just the stonework. Everything else in the back and on the other side's been renovated.
Okay, and what did you have it linked to, Louis? Was it the?
Was
one?
I put materials of craftsmanship because of the stone,
Mm-hmm,
and the B, features of the property relate to its function and design.
okay,
So just going with that, I believe Georgian style.
the Georgian style west wall.
That's right. Now, Lee, was there ever a small porch in there? In that front door?
Well,
There was talk
I think
about
there's
that.
been a couple there and
Okay.
unfortunately what's there now doesn't really do much for the house, but if you look at it and you look at the one that we discussed on Center, and the one across the road from that, none of those were original. The house, God only knows what the original.
Okay, I just wasn't
The
sure.
one directly across the road from this one could be the original. I think it's massive enough that it kind of suits the building, you know what I mean? But, porches come and go with popular, why isn't necessarily actually in South Porch. It's the mass of the building itself, part of the building that I think it portion. But like I said, to me, it's not significant enough.
Okay,
Jamie, what's your position on this one?
It was the same, like it's a Georgian style, but it doesn't have anything sort of rare or, and it seemed like it had quite a few renovations, so it's hard to pinpoint. So I said no.
Okay, Scott?
I'm the same. I said, no, it's been beautifully renovated and looked after and so on, but it's very much like many other buildings in town. I really got upset, I guess, with the amount of gas piping and stuff on the north wall, and just, to me, takes completely away from the whole building and so on, but that's what happens when you great apartments in.
Okay, Louis, are you comfortable with it being?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we even touched about it on last time. The staircase has been moved. And so many renovations in the
Yeah.
interior works.
The staircase was removed completely,
Yeah.
and I actually carpeted the hallway after it was taken out. And that was the Chris Slater's funeral home. They had viewing rooms inside. And the new people put a stairway back in. I forget I was in there, but whether it was supposed to be old or not, I don't know. Stairway is what it is.
Okay, all right, we've got a no on that one. Now, our last one on the list is 360 Dibble Street West, this property. Okay, and I don't know what the rules are for recusing. Does that mean that you leave, Louis, or does it mean that you just don't make comments?
Right through you, Madam Chair.
Please.
Basically, when you have declaration of interest, you remove yourself and you sit in the gallery
Oh,
and no comments.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Were they able to find the scene?
All right. Comments on this one?
I said no. I don't think it needs to be, the only thing I can see on the whole thing, like it's a 1930s building, like every other school that was built and so on and so forth, that it's that era. And there's lots of them around. There is history to the lot and to the people that have lived in the town, and especially in the west end of town. This lot and this particular building has been a mainstay for us for 60 years, 70 years. But not enough to the point where I think it's got to be designated.
Thank you, Scott. Jamie?
It was the same. And I thought that I might be up to change my mind if it was the entire, if it was this in the back, like the whole as a civic landmark for the town. But if it's just this building, I say no.
Yep. Lee?
Well, I have a completely different viewpoint, although sound of it, my other two committee members here have kind of the same idea on property. The building itself, in all honesty, I find it significant. It is almost 100 years old. And it has a very interesting decorative brickwork that has gone into it. It has, Prescott Town Council has never been known for looking after public buildings until fairly recently. I mean, there's not. But fortunately, this building went under a renovation about 20 years ago, maybe a little more than that, 25.
No, not even that long.
You don't think so? Well,
It was Robert Long, eh?
that's true. So 15 to 20 years ago. And to their credit, the outside of the building was largely brought back to what it was originally. I mean, the windows that they put in are modern windows, but they look like the old ones. It was repainted, nothing was torn off the outside, although it could have been done. And yes, this is a building that you will find similar to, maybe not exactly the same, but very similar architecture to throughout the province. But it's the only one we have. We don't have a half a dozen of these, like these stone buildings we've been talking about. This is it, and it's sat on this property for 96 years, I guess. The property, though, is to me what is as much of interest as the building itself. And I'm looking at the sheets that you were good enough to make for us, and I appreciate you doing that. They're good reading, but when you go through here, and I highlighted time after time, it's not the building, it's the property, the property they describe. As a matter of fact, I think there's only one case where it actually says building. And as we've been going through here, we eliminated one house, and that was Joe McFarland's house up the street. Because it was the property that brought the value to that home, the landscaping, not so much the house itself, but it was a package. To me, this property is a package. The fact that for 130 years, it has been maintained, the back part of it anyway, pretty much the way it has. Yes, it's changed. There was ball diamond there when we were younger.
Yep.
There was a big sand pit in the corner, about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. The back was completely resculptured by Kenny Beck to better make a rink. It's had lighting added, but it would have been likely built on many years ago if it originally hadn't been purchased as a school property. The only reason this building is here is because the room was there behind it for the athletic area. And when they built a new high school, only about 30 years into the life of the first one, they could have built it somewhere else. They chose to build it here. They still had the playing field. The town could have sold it for housing, but they didn't. They maintained it for the use that it's had for the last 60-some years. So to me, it's not just the building, it is the property that is important with this one. And 360 Devil Street West, I believe, is the proper description for the entire property. I don't know that there is a James Street number. There's nothing to put a number on. So to me, I may be not in agreement with the rest of you, but I would designate this, and I would designate as a property, not specifically the building, for the reasons that I mentioned.
What would it be that you would protect, Lee? Looking at the heritage attributes, what would you protect? What is it?
Well, I would protect the property behind as is unbuilt on. As far as the building itself goes, I would protect the windows, the size of them. There are other buildings of this ilk that I've seen in other communities where they've only put partial windows in. They filled it in with vinyl siding or something. Spoils the look of the whole thing. I'm not saying you couldn't put an addition on this building, but if you did, I think you would have to be very careful about how you chose to do it. The front entrance is the three entrances are largely unchanged, although there were two cement walls that came out on either end that have been removed. The one door still says either boys or girls, I forget which, the one in the east
Stan's
end.
Boys is still here.
Boys.
It's still there. The other one's changed to the library.
The other one was changed to the library, yeah. The decorative metalwork that is down, I don't know how many feet from the top that goes around it. The way the front of it is, actually the design of the building and the way the brickwork was done on it, I would say is, it's a nice design. It has stood the test of time very well. It's held up very well. So that is what I would say about the building. I would say it's representative. I don't know if I put the word early in there unless you want to say 96 years is early or 94 years is early, but it is certainly representative of a style of construction in this province. Direct associations with the theme, quite obviously, the high school and town hall yields information, contributes to the understanding of the community. Well, it's been in public domain for 130 years. Does it have importance in defining or maintaining, supporting the character of the area? Well, yeah, it does. We have a block in town that is only occupied by two very large, very substantial buildings, and the one next door is up for consideration in this as well. And I believe the property over there is as important to it as, in my opinion, the property is here. If, as I understand it, that's now been sold and the owner does not live in town. But if the owner applied to sever a lot off the front and build a house or a couple of semis on there, I would hope this committee would have something to say about it, because that would certainly change the perception of that house in the neighborhood. It's a block in the center of town, which really for most of its life has had just these two huge buildings, or the previous huge building that occupied the space. There was a carriage house next door, but that was destroyed many years ago. So, as I said, to me, it is the property, not the building. And it is the property that I would be in favor of designating, including the building.
Thank you. And my position on this is I had also said no to designation. And my reasons for that were because I can't see a heritage attribute to a property, to lawn, to grass. I can't see what gets protected there. As far as the building goes, yes, it's almost 100 years old. My home is over 200 years old and it's not even up for consideration. So I don't think age equates to heritage. And yes, the building is here only because there was room, but that would be true of every building in our town. If there wasn't room to put the building, then the building wouldn't be there. So for me, unfortunately, it doesn't meet the criteria. That would be my vote. Has anyone changed their position on this since we've started?
It's a good question. No, I mean, personally, the building's the building. It's great and it's been renovated and it's a great building. To me, it's the lot that it's on, the area itself. I find it hard to designate the building. But I would be in favor of designating the Prescott High School and its property. It's, I mean, this, since 1892 or something, this was the Prescott High School. Not this particular building, the first building.
But we can't designate something that isn't here anymore.
No, but this lot was, where the high school was, where, probably thousands of students, everybody in town at one time went through here and so on. And it's just, I guess I'm throwing emotions into the other, and that's,
Human.
well, yeah, but it's not what we're here for. So, I guess bottom line is I gotta say, if you can't do the grounds, I'm a no.
I'm of the same mind, like, has the land behind been severed? Are we talking about just this building, or are we talking about this building plus the land behind? Because that's what I don't understand. If you want to talk about 360 Dibble Street, legally 360 Dibble Street is this entire property. So if we're talking about 360 Dibble Street being from here to behind, then yeah, I think we should designate it. But if we're talking about just this building on its own, I say no.
Matthew, would you speak to this? What is the position on the land?
So it hasn't been severed. I think council's made their intention clear of using or accepting applications for affordable housing for the back part. I think, for me, the Plains of Abraham is significant from a land perspective. The land at the fort is significant. We're talking about people dying, about people giving their lives, but those sorts of things. If you fast forward 30 years, are we saying South Granville, because people went to school there or used the fields or walked through it, is now significant?
Well,
It's also been a gathering spot for the west end of town for,
I don't think but I don't think it has to be that dramatic. I mean, I don't think somebody has to die by the sword to make a piece of property significant or not. I can go back to my high school and drive by and feel those, memories and things like that, or the first house I moved into and remember playing in the backyard on the swing. And if somebody had severed that property and decided to put a pool hall back there, I'd be annoyed, kind of thing. So I think the Plains of Abraham, sure, okay. World Trade Center, yeah, okay. But I mean, I think we kind of have to be a little realistic in our analogies here, because that's a little bit far-fetched.
But it's not far-fetched when you take a look at South Granville or Wellington or what used to be Central.
Well, talk about the people who played football and baseball on the back of the property and how they feel about it. Maybe they feel as strongly about it as the Plains of Abraham. Someone who had a relative who died on, my uncle who died in the war. I go to Normandy and I break down, right?
But the question is, are we saying then that if the same thing happens 30 years from now with South Granville High School, that we would also consider designating it because there are a lot of people who spend a lot of time playing football in the yard?
I'm sorry, I don't even know where South Granville is.
The high school right up near the Independent, right up, that's our high school.
No, but that's sort of kind of apples to oranges, because at that point, we're looking at the building and we're looking at its attributes and we're looking at its architecture and we're looking at the whole thing, right? So the whole thing with the property or without the property, maybe we'll be having, I won't be, but somebody might be having that same discussion in 30 years if they want to, expropriate the backfields and build housing. And the community there goes, no, but that's where I went to school or my kids went to school and that's where they play baseball. Maybe this will all be rehashed again at a later date. You don't know, right? But I don't think we can project into the future, nor can we throw back too far to the past to say what it is right now. legally right now, when you say to me 360 Dibble Street, it includes that property because it legally has not been severed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, then I change my vote. I say yes.
So what is it? Because you're on record earlier in the meeting.
Yeah,
That the building is not historical.
no, that's not what I said. I said that I said the building itself doesn't merit a historical designation without including the property, because as a part of the landmark for the town includes the entire property, because I was under the impression that the lots had been severed. That's what I meant to say.
So what heritage attribute does the property qualify as in your view?
It's an example of Art Deco in the facade.
No, it isn't.
Isn't
It
it?
doesn't, no, that has been removed
Oh,
and
I thought it was.
no, and
Okay.
we can't use it.
Then I say that it's, it has value as a landmark and in the town.
Right, but we need a heritage attribute, one of the A through F,
Okay.
to match. And it needs to, in some way, indicate something that makes the property significant, not just the building.
Okay, C, features related to properties and historical associations. It was a school.
So what features are we protecting?
Well, we're protecting the lot in the back. We're protecting the engraving of the boys' entrance down at the corner there. It's configured as a school interiorly. So number D, it's an example of civil architecture.
I think quite honestly, we're fooling ourselves.
Yeah.
We're picking it.
I know. I think
No
we're
harm.
putting the cart before the horse on this.
And it's.
You know,
I'm
I do.
all for saying, no, there's nothing historically significant. We can't do it. However, let's send a rash letter to the council and stuff saying that, you know, I personally am against them doing anything out there. It belongs to the town, to the people of the West End, to the people 100 years ago that used it as a
Yeah.
ball field, football field, playground, sports activities, picnics, everything. Like it's a dog park. It was.
Yeah.
It needs to be there. However.
I,
Force it.
in my opinion, when I think of this building with the property behind it, once they build behind, it is going to detract from the historical significance of this building.
And of the house next door and so on.
Yeah, I just think it's just going to it's going to take away this building's character as a school that's been, reconfigured to become a town hall and still become a part of the civic life of Prescott. I don't know how to fit that into the wee boxes. I don't. But, culturally heritage, I have no link to this building. I have no link to that backfield. I walk my dog through there and we chase sticks. That's it. But, to me, when you do that, this building doesn't mean anything without having that historical significance of the entire property in total. I think that's what I'm trying to get at.
Matthew actually made a good point when he referenced the fort. Well, you mentioned the plains of Abraham as well, but I don't recall in my history that anybody ever died at the fort. Matter of fact, I don't think a battle was ever fought there, was it?
Nope.
No.
At where?
The fort?
Oh, at the fort. I thought you said the fort. I thought, why are we talking about cars?
Fort.
It's getting late.
Sorry.
No battle ever fought at the fort, so nobody died. Appendicitis or something. It would be very difficult as a Prescottonian to envision a fort without the fort field. It's a unit.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
This to me, is a unit.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. If this is not at this time legally severed from the property at the back, if we're discussing 360 Dibble Street, that includes the property at the back. And I did say that. If we're just talking about this building, I vote no. If we're talking about the whole enchilada, I vote yes.
But then we should decide what we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If it,
Well, we have to have characteristics that match whatever it is you want to be doing.
but if you can't give me the correct property, if you're telling me it's the whole thing, but Matthew is saying that this council's already made a decision that that property is going to be severed at some point, then that's not 360 Dibble Street. So you are, like I said, you're putting the cart before the horse. You're asking us to judge on a property that has already had a severance or something applied that is not going to be the same property in 6, 8, 9 months.
Yeah, this property was initially not even on the list, not even
Yeah.
up for
So I
consideration.
honestly, I don't think we can, do we have to vote or look at it as if we don't know about this other situation going on? Are we talking about 360 Dibble Street? That's my ask, that's my.
I don't know that. Matthew, could you?
So if your decision about this property or this building or anything else is swayed by whatever council has decided or intends to do at the back, then I think you need to step back and reevaluate.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that it's this, if you're asking us to do 360 Dibble Street, then we're doing the whole property. But if this is not 360 Dibble Street, or 360 Dibble Street is not going to look the same in 6 months or 9 months or a year, then I think this is that we can't do this. But if you want an answer for today, and it includes the entire property, I say yes.
I think that what I'm hearing around the table tonight is that the effort is to save the field, the property. It's to save the grass, to save the land behind the building.
The effort is to save the entire building with its property, with its land as a landmark, like Fort Wellington.
Right.
Right. But if you went into Fort Wellington and said, oh, do you want to save Fort Wellington? Oh, by the way, we're going to sever off 3 of the fields. It's like, well, then it's just going to be a hut on a hill, or something like that. Right. So you can't ask us to make a decision on something without giving us the correct property. And at this point, it's sort of like wishy-washy, right? It's not just this building right now.
Well, that's the hope of members of the committee, that it not be just this building right now. It depends on whether or not we take the decision by council as a final decision. If the decision by council is a final decision, and as far as I understand that it is, then we can only do
Then that
something
could
with
be an
the building
addendum
itself.
to this, then.
Well, again, we don't even have a listing information for this. All of this
Yeah.
is just information that was provided by
Yeah.
the Historical Society. All of this was an attempt to do something about saving the property behind. That's where this came from. It got brought into the committee for that specific reason. So that conversation has already been completed with council. They have decided that they are going to sell the back of the property for this.
Right.
If the committee says, no, we want that completely reversed. We want that changed. We want that taken back to the drawing board. We want to open it up again. Then that has to be the decision of the committee that goes forward with a bylaw to council, making that request. Council can still make whatever decision council makes. We are still in the position of being advisors. But what I'm hearing is that the only reason people would consider making this property historically designated is because of the property as a whole. Said if it was just the building, you wouldn't designate. If it was just the building, you wouldn't designate. If it was just the building, I wouldn't designate. That should tell us something. That if the building doesn't have the value to us of being designated, of being worthy of designation, and all that's being attempted is to make it worthy of designation in order to protect the land, I don't see that as,
It's a loophole.
yeah, it looks like,
That's-
you know, and I think under those conditions, I think we lose our objectivity and we lose our value to council as an objective party coming forward. It looks like we're running an agenda because that's what it is.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, I just got here. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
I hear you.
I don't have, I don't have any heartstrings pulling at me as I walk through the park.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah,
I'm the
all I'm saying is that this building itself, like, without the back property, I mean, I don't even know. My daughters live in a town that they've done that. They've expropriated property from historical civic buildings and they've built stuff in the back that doesn't match, it doesn't go, and it looks like hell.
Sure.
And so that's what I'm saying. The character and the nature and the value of the property is the property,
Yeah,
you know?
yep,
And when you expropriate land and you give it to a developer, it demeans, it can bring down the value of the properties around it.
yeah,
And without any other reference
yeah.
than my, driving through towns, that's how I see this building. Not that it doesn't have any cultural or historical attributes, it has plenty. But it is demeaned and devalued by this decision, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, listen, Jamie, I totally hear you.
Yeah.
I completely agree in that I would love it if the property stayed the way that it was, that it is. I would love it. I also walk my dog here. I also love how the shadows fall at a certain time of day. I think it's beautiful. And it really attracted me when I moved here 5 years ago. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
My problem is the more, everything I look at in the Ontario Heritage Act, and I went through it with a fine tooth comb over the Christmas holidays, there is nothing to support it as a heritage one. It would require a lot of, I can't find anything that would support it as heritage. And so that feels like we're just trying to pull a rabbit out of the hat in order to make it go the way we want it to go. And I don't want our committee to be that way.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
And we all have our opinions.
Yep, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So are we at a point where we can vote on this?
You're the boss.
All right. I'm voting no. Scott,
I have to go with no.
Lee,
And yes, as a property, but you have to specify whether you're calling a question. I don't have to. You should specify whether you're calling the question on the property as a whole or the building. Because you have indicated that you've gone all through and you can't find anything.
Mhm.
But when I look at this, I see all kinds of things. And
but what are they, Lee? You have to specify.
I've already done so.
Okay, no, but you specified for the building.
No,
What did you specify for the property? What of A through F?
all right, has
The property.
direct associations with the theme, education, and, okay.
Right.
The lot is gonna be.
Madam Chair, if I could interrupt, because property includes the building and the land together. We haven't done this with any other property or home. We haven't said, okay, well, we're going to designate this and, well, let's look at the backyard. Do you know, it seems to me that I don't think honestly that this is even viable at this point.
Because the decision has been.
Because as you said, okay, what do you want about the property? Well, the third blade grass from the right, I remember. Like the trees.
Yeah.
You know, they're historically, how old are the trees? You know, we can put that down, but we haven't done that with anybody else. So
Well, actually, we did with the one on East Street. Scott, you wanted to designate the whole property.
oh, the grotto included?
No,
that
the
was
Colonel's Inn.
The.
Oh, yeah.
East Street, that's the bed and breakfast now.
Yeah.
We also did the same thing on the James Street West House that we didn't designate because we felt it was really just the yard work.
But
That's
they had already sold off a chunk of that yard 80 years ago
Yeah.
and ruined it.
Yeah, well.
Mhm.
So we don't really know what it looked like, so it might have been an improvement, I don't know. So anyway, to get back what I was saying and what I have said before, it has direct associations with a theme, education, an activity, the sports of that of that group organization.
Yeah, Lee, I'm sorry to interrupt, but for that category.
Yes.
You have to have something from A through F down from heritage attributes that would be the piece that is protected to match that category.
Features of a property related to its function or design. Its function was athletics and it has continued to this day.
Okay, so.
Yeah, but you, like, go look at F, read F, like it's the broader setting. Relationship between a property and its broader setting.
Okay.
As well.
So put F there.
Features related to a property's historical associations. That one hits the nail as well. Karen, I think when we get right down to it, we could sit here for the next hour and
Yeah, we need
we
to
don't have
not.
anything to do it.
No.
You don't, but I don't believe that you and I are going to agree on this. You read one thing into what's written here. I look at it a different way and I read something different into it.
Mhm.
Which one of us is right? We're probably both right to a certain extent, and we're probably both wrong to a certain extent.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, it's whatever the committee decides
Correct,
that we all have to live with.
correct.
And also at the end of the day, the committee is only a recommendation to council.
Correct.
And what council decides, they can decide to ignore it. And they have in the past. I've been on council when a recommendation has been ignored. And in all probability, whatever we decide not to designate it, they don't have to ignore it because it's not going to come to council. If we decide to designate it, it will come to council and they're probably going to ignore it anyway because they've already made a decision as I think you've indicated. So I think we can kick this around all night, but the point is it the property or is it the building? That's what we're voting on, in my opinion. And I vote yes to designate the property. The building.
Yeah.
But our job as committee for Prescott Heritage, I think we could all agree that we're looking at buildings. We're not looking at land and so on. In a lot of cases, or in some cases, they become one, they meld together, but quite honestly, I think you have to admit that we're dealing with buildings.
I'd say the property next door, when that one comes up, that's gonna be
Well, okay,
Okay, but let's leave the next door one. We can't get into that at this point. We haven't even looked at it.
I mean, you're gonna get the same problem when next door, you know, somebody comes along and asks the lady if she wants to sell off that back end there, because he can put 3 houses along there.
Mhm.
You know, or a couple of duplexes or something.
Sure.
All of a sudden, somebody's gonna make a decision, like.
Yeah.
You know, I would hate to see it, but how do you stop somebody?
Okay, we have Lee's position, we have Scott's. Amy, where are you now?
I'm just because right now, the property legally described as 360 Dibble Street is the entire property. I'm going to say yes.
All right, so we have a tie on this. What do we do with that at this point? Lindsay?
So through you, Madam Chair, a tie is a loss, a vote in the negative. So when it's a tie vote, it's a loss.
Okay.
Based on the procedural bylaw that applies to council and committees and boards.
Pardon me.
Thank you. All right. Folks, this was quite the meeting, quite the meeting. I commend you for not only hanging in, but for really, really giving this a lot of consideration. It's a tremendous group. Thank you. Let's just very quickly just see how we are on process review. Did the form work for you? Is this manner of discussing properties when we get together, is that working for you?
I think it was good. It's, I think we got a lot more properties done than was anticipated at the last meeting when we were discussing it, and
We're troopers, aren't we? Yeah.
yeah, it's,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
I'm happy with it.
okay.
Yeah, it works.
It's good.
Good. Is it working for you? Is it working? Okay, great.
Going forward. Are we going back to our? Like a limited, if I may, we have a limited amount of time now to the end of the year, and we're just gonna divide what we have left up, because summer is kind of
We actually have 5 properties that we had received and not discussed. So that would be our next batch. The new people, you haven't received them. We got them and then nothing happened with them because we lost members of the committee and it was a number of months before we got you on board. So, so we would look at those again. And then after that, we'll have 10 more that should be easily manageable with the time period we have. Okay, does that work? So it'll only be 5 properties next time? Oh. I know, a breeze.
That's a walk.
Uh-huh. Does anyone have any new business they'd like to bring forward?
Sorry,
Please.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I don't think I put it on your agenda. I do have 2 recommendations based on the information that we, for coming off the list in green bylaws.
Okay,
So based on the discussion of the committee, I have a draft recommendation that reads that the Prescott Heritage Committee directs staff to bring back draft designation bylaws to a future Prescott Heritage Committee meeting for the following properties: St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, 408 East Street, 490 Center Street, St. John's the Evangelist Anglican Church, and 305 Center Street, the Surgery.
and did you get 388 Center?
No.
We put that aside.
Oh,
No,
I think
we
it was it put aside or?
No,
we had it?
we took it. We did add it.
Okay.
We had it
Yep,
as
I
a
can
yes.
add that one there. Yep.
I'm sorry, I must have dozed off there, but the Presbyterian Church, did you label that as a church or a street number?
I didn't put the street number on it, because I didn't have that on the agenda.
The only reason I mention it is because when that first came to us, it included both of the buildings.
Right.
And they have been split, so I don't know how you wanna fix that, but.
You mean the manse?
Yeah.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, I didn't bring the manse back for discussion because I felt originally the committee had felt it would come up altogether, so.
It was on discussion. We did talk about it tonight. We did talk about the manse separately because it's 147. No, I'm sorry.
It's a different manse.
Different manse. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Sorry about that, Lindsay.
Yeah, because the manse for St. Andrews is on Center Street.
Right.
as well, right?
Right.
So that one hasn't, and the committee was fine with that. I felt that I didn't put it on, but if the committee would like me to specify excluding the manse, I can do that.
They should have 2 separate street numbers, because they're 2 separate, that tax wise, I would think that they would have 2 separate street, don't they have a different street number for different, it have to be on different tax, well, church doesn't.
Should have always had different street numbers.
So we definitely have two different roles. There's a question around the actual street number. So right now, I think the manse has the street number. I'm not sure the church has any street number. So that's something we're kind of sorting out at the moment, but they are definitely two separate lots.
All right, well.
Yeah.
How do you phone 911?
Big church.
To the big church.
Now, through you, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't believe that recommendation ever went to council, so I can add the manse with the address on there that it be removed from the interest list as well.
Yeah.
Because it is still listed on the interest list. I believe it was as one, but specified the church and the manse.
That's, well, we have two new members, three really, since it was,
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the manse?
No,
No? Do you want to talk about the manse? I'm not talking about tonight. Do you want it brought forward?
no.
No, I don't think
No.
it's.
Okay, so we'll leave, oh, yeah, so,
Good idea.
so would you please leave that, put that on the list of the no's?
I actually did.
Okay, okay, so we have to come back to these motions.
Sorry.
No problem.
Well, if they want it done, then we gotta look at it, don't we?
Well, so that's a good question. Actually, if somebody requests, there has to be listed, designated. Does that just go straight to council? Or does it come here? Or do we ignore
It would absolutely come here and then go through the process.
Mhm.
And I think the intention would be that it would go after the first 25.
Yes,
it? Oh,
yeah,
Well,
for our original
again,
list.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the provincial government's mandate is that I don't know, because you can have it on listed for 2 years, isn't that right? Okay, forget what I was gonna say.
Okay,
Okay, so the draft resolution had the 5 properties to be brought forward. Are we fine with just including St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church as a basic description, since I don't have an actual street address?
yes.
Okay, so if the committee's fine with that,
Okay, so we need a mover for those 5 properties to be taken forward for designation. You want to move that? Jamie, thank you. Seconder?
Sure.
Scott? In favor? Thank you. All right, and then we have another motion?
do. So through you, Madam Chair, I have a draft resolution that reads, the Prescott Heritage Committee recommend to council that the following properties be removed from the heritage interest and value properties listing. Those properties include 491 James Street West, 590 George Street, 177 Dibble Street East, 147 Dibble Street West, 392 Edward Street, and St. Andrew's Manse.
Mover for that? Louis? Seconder? Jamie? In favor? Opposed, Lee?
Well, yeah, I'm opposed, but the committee voted in favor, so you can't oppose it. You have to vote in favor of it. So,
Well, the committee does, but you are,
no, the committee voted to remove the property here that I really don't want removed. And since that's the vote of the committee, then it should be a unanimous vote.
right. It wasn't even mentioned though in that list because it wasn't one of the properties that had been listed. So in not taking it forward, we stopped at 392 Edward Street. We didn't include 360 Dipple Street West.
Probably should have, though, shouldn't it?
Lindsay?
Through you, Madam Chair. So 360 Dibble Street West was never added to the heritage interest and value properties listing.
Oh, all right, okay. Fine. So that's.
Now you want to revote?
No.
Okay. Okay, does anyone have any new business they'd like to bring forward?
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
440 Dillon Street West was referenced in this meeting, and that's the boarded up, beside the, funeral home. Matthew, you mentioned that there's an engineer. We've asked for an engineer's report. Have you any idea when that's going to be coming?
Can certainly check with Sean on that, our CBO. I'm more than happy to bring that back to Heritage when we have it.
Okay, I'd kind of like maybe an interim report from Sean if we can on what the situation is on that building, because it is a substantial property. And having it abuts part of my property. And I walk around it every once in a while, and physically it is deteriorating to the point where it is in danger of some of the walls letting go. So there is a danger portion that is kind of roped off there. And I keep asking Sean about this, not because it's a neighboring property, but I'm concerned about the house itself. I would like to get a very good idea of what kind of a time frame we're looking at for this. Because I think at the end of the day, and Matthew, feel free to correct me here if I'm wrong, but if this company here should decide that it is, because we'll have to look at that it is historically enough to recommend to council, because that's where the money will be coming from, the town, if I'm right, to fix it and add it onto the taxes, we would be looking at an amount that you'd be looking at, could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Whether the council would want to spend that money or not would be council's decision. So we may be looking at that. I suspect we'd probably be looking at something that is not going to be decided here, but I think it would behoove us to examine the situation.
Certainly, we'd be more than happy to bring back an interim report, as well as if the engineering report's ready, then that as well. But certainly, once we receive the engineering report, depending on what it says, then some type of orders would be placed on the house. If they're not followed, then I think would have had the discussion at that point, and we'll come back to Heritage and say, this is what the situation is. How do you want to deal with this? And then potentially move on to council. But we're going to happen in the next meeting to have an interim report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. There are no questions from the media. Item 8 is adjournment. And before we get to this, I'd like to ask if you would like to have a length of time for future meetings. Do you want to call it at a certain time? Do you want to continue to do the process the way we're doing? I mean, tonight was exceptionally heavy. We did an awful lot of work tonight. When we are starting to look at only 5 properties, it's not going to go 2.5 hours. But is there anyone who feels that you would like to say, these meetings cannot go beyond X time?
Not me.
You're okay?
I'm okay.
Everybody's okay? Terrific.
Point.
Yep.
We're getting the 5 new ones now that we haven't discussed before. So
Correct.
Are we going to ask those people to come to the meeting? Are we going to invite them, or are we going to discuss it and then invite them to another subsequent?
That's a good point.
I think at our last meeting, we talked about discussing and then inviting them to a subsequent meeting. We can certainly change that, but that is, I think, what we had discussed.
Reasonable to me.
That sound all right?
Mhm.
Is this the freedom to speak? Okay. And then, so I'm proposing that we adjourn to June 18th. Tuesday seems to be working well for members of this committee. And the 18th of June is a Tuesday. Is everyone okay for that date? Does that sound reasonable?
Okay.
That'll give us all a month. So Lindsay will provide us with the forms and the information, same as she has done, for the next 5 properties. All right, the time, so we have a recommendation that the Prescott Heritage Committee meeting be adjourned to Tuesday, June 18th. The time is 7:57 PM. Do I have a mover for this motion? Louis, and a seconder? Lee, thank you. All in favor?